How to prove that criminal defamation took place. This is what this video is all about. Specifically, how to prove that according to the Dutch criminal code. So, according to the Dutch law, there are three main types of defamation that are covered by two articles, Article 261 and Article 262. The first one is not relevant to this video because it does not include posting defamatory content online, meaning that I will not address it, so that leaves two main types of defamation for this video. Those are libel, according to Article 261, Section 2 of the Dutch Criminal Code, and aggravated defamation according to Article 262. What do they mean? So libel is summarized by posting either written content, images or videos online, in the news or anywhere else where it can be accessible to the public. On top of that, the content that is posted needs to harm the reputation and honor of another person. Moreover, it needs to be done on purpose, so the harm needs to be on purpose and there has to be no justified reason for making that defamatory content. As we'll see later in the video, there are a few exceptions regarding when posting such content represents a crime and when it doesn't. In addition to these elements, in Article 262, it is stated that when a person committing a crime is aware that the content that they share is false, then they are guilty of aggravated defamation. Based on the specifics of the Dutch Criminal Code, I created a checklist of what the prosecution needs to prove when someone accuses another person of defamation. So, I divided that into 6 segments. The first 4 apply only to Article 261. When these conditions are met, the person is found guilty of libel, of committing libel. When number 5 and number 6 are also met on top of the first 4, the defendant, if they found guilty of Article 262. Now let's go through all these conditions. So number 1, the content needs to be made public. What does that mean? In theory, it means that at least one other person, besides the person committing defamation and the victim, needs to be made aware of the defamatory content. In practice, in order for defamation to be categorized as criminal, a large number of people need to be made aware of the defamatory content. Number 2, it needs to harm the reputation and honor of another person. So the content has to be negative. It has to cause harm. It has to cause reputational harm. Number 3, the crime has to be committed intentionally. And because of that, Dutch law presents 2 exceptions, which are found in point number 4. When the claim is made public for the purpose of self-defense or the defense of another person, then that is considered an exception. That means that when someone is defending themselves, they are not committing a crime. However, that is crucial. The element of defense is crucial. So you're not deliberately making a claim about someone else. You are defending yourself or someone else, and that of the claims that the other person made. So you're not defaming them, you're defending yourself. And finally, the public interest aspect. When there is a situation which requires that information in the interest of the public, then it is not considered a crime to share that information. However, another crucial aspect is that in order for that to apply, and that is self-explanatory, the person who is committing the defamation cannot know that the claim that they're making is false. So they have to believe and to reasonably believe that the claim is true. Otherwise, these exceptions do not count. Then there are number 5 and 6 that apply only to Article 262. The statement must be false. So in order for someone to be guilty of aggravated defamation according to Article 262, the claim that they are making public, the defamatory claim that they are making public needs to be false. And on top of that, it said here on point number 6 that the person who is committing the defamation needs to also be aware that the claim is false. Meaning that if they share a claim that is false, a defamatory claim that is false, but they believe that it is true and they can prove that they reasonably had a motive to believe that it would have been true, then they're not guilty of Article 262. However, if they are proven to know that the claim is false, then they are guilty of defamation according to Article 262. So now that I've explained these concepts, I will apply them to my situation. So once again, as mentioned in many other past videos, in 2017, the government targeted me through a direct intervention in which it created an environment, a digital environment, where where these two crimes were functionally legalized against me. This means that it was 100% impossible for me to make a criminal accusation, to start criminal procedure. So I couldn't start a criminal procedure because of that targeted government intervention. And what that did, it functionally legalized those crimes because people could commit them, and I would never be able to start a criminal procedure, to address these crimes. So basically, they committed crimes. They were not punished for their crimes, and eventually the statute of limitations expired, and they would never pay for their crimes. What that is? Well, the functional legalization of defamation against me within that digital environment where the government functionally legalized it. So how does this apply to me? Because of that government intervention, over 1,000 people committed these crimes. The crime that was mostly committed is aggravated defamation according to Article 262. In this video, I'll provide a basic structure of how that looks, of what most people did. So I existed in proximity to the respective people. They fabricated a false story out of nothing for no justified reason. They were not defending themselves. They were not addressing an existing situation. They simply created defaming content out of nothing. So that was a new issue. Once again, they did not address an existing situation. They created a new one. They produced negative content about me out of nothing. So they made up these false stories, and then they posted them on a global stage where they used it to defame me, and in many cases it was accompanied by humiliating me based on that content, or even dehumanizing me based on that content. So they did that with a psychopathic intention. They laughed about it, and they tried to monetize this crime. They did it for an expected reward that is often paid out. And it consists of money, of fame, and career opportunities, or at least one or more of these things. So they did all that. What does that mean according to these conditions? So number one, is it public? Well, it was posted on a global stage where millions of people had seen it. So that is self-explanatory. Let's check it. This condition was met. The second one, was there harm to my reputation? Well, most of the stories, they directly or indirectly incriminate me of crimes or of extremely negative behavior that I never exhibited, and on top of that, it caused significant destruction of my identity, besides causing reputational harm and harm to my honor. Because of the aspect of having posted that on a global stage, everywhere I went, people perceived me according to these false stories, and as you can imagine, that had extremely negative consequences on my life. So harm to reputation, 100%, this is also checked. Was it intentional, and did they have a reason to do that? As explained, they produced false information out of nothing. They weren't defending themselves, they were unprovoked. They didn't address an existing situation of public interest. They simply created a new one in which they purposely defame me with false content that they made up. So was it intentional? There is no justified reason to do that. So yes, it was intentional. And there was no justified reason. Once again, no justified reason to deliberately and unprovoked to do that from a deliberate manner and in an unprovoked manner. They simply attacked me while I was just existing in the same environment. Number 5 and 6, well, this is self-explanatory. They made up the false content, so they knew that the content was false. So these conditions are also met. Now, besides meeting all the requirements for committing aggravated defamation according to Article 262 of the Dutch Criminal Code, there are additional aggravating factors. So most of the times when defamation is committed, it is not committed on a global stage. This is an extremely important aspect. The negative effects of the defamation apply to my life wherever I would go, because everybody saw this content. So the harm caused as a result of posting the defamatory content on a global stage is extreme. So that makes this especially serious. On top of that, the monetization of the crime is extremely serious. Committing a crime is indeed negative in any scenario, but when you are doing it to obtain a reward, to make money out of the crime, or to get fame out of the crime, that makes it significantly worse. And it proves that the psychopathic intention was there to the greatest possible extent. This is the worst type of reason behind committing a crime, trying to obtain money or other similar rewards in exchange or as a result of committing that crime. So these two factors are extremely important. They are aggravating factors that they make the crime significantly worse than it would have otherwise been in a normal context. So the global aspect of the crime and the monetization of the crime. In addition to this, there is another aspect that is also extremely important. The crime in many cases was committed repeatedly. So this, besides posting the defamatory content and then posting it again and again, they made different defamatory claims which follow the same cycle. So that happened once. Let's to explain this, let's say that this cycle happened once. They made up a false story that had extremely negative effects on my life, and they posted it, and they tried to make money out of it, and they dehumanized me based on it, and it had horrifying consequences on my life. And afterward, they made up another unrelated defamatory claim, and they followed the same cycle, and they did that repeatedly. So what that means is that the same crime that was already committed in the worst possible manner was committed multiple times. What does that mean? Well, to summarize, it means that people who did that are guilty of aggravated defamation according to Article 262 to the greatest possible extent, meaning that they 100% need to be punished according to the maximum punishment, which is 2 years of prison time. Now, in some cases, and this has been explained in another video, the harm that it caused and the psychopathic intentions and the amount of rewards that they produced or received as a result of committing the crimes are so extreme that not even the maximum punishment can address the harm that they caused. So in this case, the harm is irreparable. That being said, over 100 people committed these crimes to this extent, to the extent that they required the maximum prison time. None of them have paid for their crimes. It continues to be 100% impossible for me to obtain justice in court because the government functionally legalized these crimes against me, and I tried and did my best to go and start the criminal procedure, but it is 100% impossible to do it. And what that means is that these criminals committed those crimes against me were never punished for it, were rewarded for committing those crimes instead, and I can do nothing about it. And that makes me a subhuman creature that is not entitled to justice, to dignity, to respect, and to equal human rights. And this is basically what this phenomenon is. Now, I'm not saying that everybody committed defamation to this extent. Once again, this crime was committed over 1,000 times. So over 1,000 people committed this crime. However, not all of them need to be sent to prison, and not all the people who need to be sent to prison need to be sent to prison for the maximum amount of time. However, many of them do. Once again, it is expected that over 100 people have committed this crime to this extent. So what needs to happen now, that is also self-explanatory, there needs to be action. This issue, this situation requires urgent, immediate urgent action. There are a long list of people and organizations that can help in nullifying the illegal government intervention that legalized these crimes against me, and allow justice to take place in a court of law. Those people are found in governments. There are many legal experts that can help with that. There are many human rights organizations. There are many people and many organizations who can do something to help, and they're remaining silent about this series of irreparable injustices and extreme violations of my human rights should be considered a crime. So that is what needs to happen next. There needs to be action, and there's only one thing to be done, and that is to nullify that illegal, unconstitutional government intervention that violated my fundamental human rights, that functionally legalized these crimes against me, and that resulted in this series of thousands of crimes that were committed against me only because the government had legalized them. That felt and that was mental rape, torture, psychological torture, and it made it 100% impossible to have a social or professional life. I only existed to be tortured, and that is inhumane and should not be accepted, and it should be addressed. And there's only one way to do that. The government intervention needs to be nullified, and justice needs to be allowed to take place in a court of law.